Hello.
Mr. Hudson, how are you?
Jason, how was your trip?
It was hectic. I'm sorry we didn't get more of an opportunity to put out some of our calls. It was just hard to find the time to encode and upload, and it was really doing a lot of driving and chasing down
Well,
leads.
you're one guy doing 8 jobs, I mean, come on.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not an easy task.
Not an easy task. I actually just saw a video that Jake Morphonios did a great report on our buddies over there at Battlefield Las Vegas.
Yep, I saw it.
Okay, great. So you remember, of course, I told you they threw me out of there for asking questions. But Jake found on the police scanner that they're working, hand in glove with the Las Vegas Metro PD, providing them with armored vehicles. That's pretty crazy.
Well, it's interesting for sure. We have the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and it was quite clear on the radio transmission that the vehicles were headed to South Central Area Command is where they were headed.
What does that mean?
Well, there is a South Central Area Command Center in Vegas. I looked that up.
Mm-hmm.
Those vehicles going down there, who knows? It's hard to say. It's hard to say. But it is interesting, to say the least.
Yeah.
And do you recall ever hearing anything from the police chief of Las Vegas, of the Metro Police, or has all of this bullshit been conducted by the sheriff and the Nazi SS FBI sack?
Yeah, it's just Lombardo, the sheriff. Like, where is the chief of police?
I think I saw him in one video, and that was it. Only one. And the thing I wonder about is the jurisdiction of all this.
Right.
Not that the sheriff wouldn't have crossover jurisdiction with the Metro Police, but just the whole thing is very interesting, and it's like I said before, we know that Paddock frequented on more than one occasion Battlefield Vegas.
They don't want to talk about it.
He took his brother, he took other individuals there, spent a lot of money at Battlefield. They don't want to talk about it. They should talk about it.
Yeah, it's just getting worse for them now.
I think so. I'm not saying that they had anything to do with what Mr. Paddock supposedly, the fairy tale that they're spinning, but I'm not saying they had anything to do with that. But it is interesting when you start taking a look at what Morphonius did, and it was an excellent piece.
Yeah.
Really like his work.
Yep.
But it is interesting that the young man who decided that he was going to remove the pistol from the police officer and go after Trump, he went to Battlefield Vegas.
Yeah.
To get training on how to use a Glock 17.
It's every psycho's favorite gun range, it seems.
You're in that business. You can't. It's not. There's no way you're going to know who walks through your door, right?
Right.
I'm sure that they have some kind of. I would like to think they have some kind of screening process of some type, but even that gets interesting because I think there would be a problem if an individual had been convicted of a felon. They're not allowed to own a firearm or fire one, to my knowledge.
Well, their screening process would seem to entail throwing me out, so I don't know what they're really looking for over there, but certainly nosy people are not it.
Well, they don't like little guys that ask
A lot of big questions, right?
big questions.
Yeah.
So anyway, they just didn't like you.
Yeah, the guy definitely didn't like what I was asking.
Exactly. So
I'm not sure if I've reported on it exactly. I mean, I think I told you, but I don't know that we ever put it out. I mean, I went in there and asked the guy. I was actually just asking them about, what the different guns weighed, because they had, you told me about the M249, that you had heard that in the audio and everything, and they had an M249 there. So I was just asking how much it weighed, and they got upset about that. And then that was just a woman behind the counter, and then I started asking a few more questions, and then a pretty sizable, well over 6 feet tall, extremely kind of buff dude with an exposed gun came over and just said, "Are you a reporter?" And I said, "Yes." And he was like, "Get off the premises," and straight threw me out.
Yeah, well, he was the guy with the gun. Okay.
Right.
Oh, my goodness. But yeah, I think there's a story there for sure, and I think that by their refusal to even discuss this, I think, quite frankly, any good investigative reporter is going to dig deeper.
Yeah.
So it would be in their best interest to set up a meeting and do an actual interview.
I'll contact them again tomorrow and ask them what they think about that.
I would tell them that the story isn't going to go away until they have a discussion.
Some kind of statement.
They can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's better for them to make a statement than not.
I agree. The more time goes by that they don't say anything, the more suspicious it appears.
Yeah. And then what about the 3 armored vehicles?
Yeah. Yeah. They should explain the nature of their relationship with the Las Vegas Metro PD.
Yeah, do they have a contract with them? I mean, it's possible that they have a contract with SWAT, but then it's also on the radio transmission that they're not affiliated with the police department. But their orders were to proceed to South Central Command area.
Yeah.
So there must be some kind of an agreement of some kind.
Yeah. It's very strange. We'll have to look into that further.
I think there's a lot of strangeness with this whole thing.
Yeah.
And one is, one of the questions that has been brought up, and I ask it myself, is, where is all the damage?
Right. There's like no holes in any of the tents. There's no bullet holes visible anywhere. You would think all those thousands of rounds being shot into the crowd from above.
Yeah, that was good work by those people. It was very smart what they did. They rented a room. They took their time, and they've been following. I mean, they've just been sitting there monitoring the activity of the bureau out there at the venue.
Yeah,
smart move on their part, in my opinion. Very smart. So again, good work. And Queen Tut can say I get all my information off the internet, which is very irritating to me, by the way.
I can imagine.
Well, it's just not true, and I hate to bring it up, but it really does need to be addressed. I expect a full apology and a full retraction from her. The network does not need to have additional drama. Doesn't deserve that. So it was not appreciated. It was a blatant falsehood. There's a lot of great work being done, and one of the things that I am not going to do is to take credit for anybody's work.
Right.
And there is a lot of work out there. It's not like the Hudson Groups has a multitude of people. We have a lot of people, but it's not like we have a multitude of people in a budget where we can actually tell people to get on a plane and fly someplace.
Right.
To do work. All of what we have done has come out of our own pockets.
And open source, right? And open source. So obviously there's crossover with internet information and your own evaluations and whatever. I agree, it was unfair.
Sure.
I think that Queen Tut's under a lot of pressure, and she's been through quite a lot. And I think that was a big misunderstanding, and I hope that she sees fit to move past it and hopefully apologize. I think it could have been handled better.
Well, it was a misunderstanding, and the misunderstanding was on her part.
Yeah.
And I would never take anything away from anybody. I never have, and I never would. But for her to make the comment and the accusation that she made was unacceptable. So, but anyway, there's a lot of great work that's going on, and quite frankly, it gives me great pleasure to recognize individuals like yourself, Morphonius, Laura Loomer.
Yeah, she's doing great work.
Who has just, there's a lot of people doing great work. The photojournalist,
Tyler.
Again, a wonderful guy, good work, has burnt some shoe leather, obviously.
Yeah.
And why, there's enough people out there that suffer with narcissism and an uncontrolled ego and vanity that, the independent news media just doesn't need another one.
Yeah.
it just doesn't. And so I'm not going to, I have no intentions of becoming the next narcissist in the independent news, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, there's just so many things that you would like to think that the number of unanswered questions would go down in number. And
It just keeps going up, actually.
It has. It has. And, then we've got the situation in Vegas with Hooters.
Right.
Again, finally, after several weeks, we finally have an individual that has decided to put their video out onto YouTube, thank God, showing, I think at one point, I counted 12 ambulances sitting outside of Hooters. Well, what is that about?
Don't know.
There's got to be a reason for that. Nobody has gone, to my knowledge, nobody has actually gone and talked to anybody at Hooters. Nobody's done an interview with any employee.
I wish we would have known about that a few days ago. I could have done that. Laura's still over there, so I can actually, I'll ask her. I'm sure she's going to be on it all on her own.
Yeah, I think that Laura ought to hit Battlefield Vegas. I think she ought to go over to Hooters and dig at Hooters a bit.
Yep.
Hooters has, the thing that interests me about Hooters is
the wings, right? I know, it's the wings.
If there's a football game on and good wings, I mean, the women can just, it's one. I'm the guy that says, "Do you mind stepping aside?" I really don't care how good looking you are. I want to watch the football game, drink my beer, eat some wings, and if I could smoke a cigar, I would be doing that too. Anyway, I'm talking too much about my personal stuff. But, yeah, not a good thing. But Hooters, that Hooters in Vegas has, if you think about it, has really flown under the radar.
How do you mean?
Nothing's been said about it. Not, have you heard that the FBI hasn't addressed Hooters?
No.
The sheriff hasn't addressed Hooters. Nobody has addressed Hooters. Nobody has said anything about Hooters, that Hooters in Vegas.
Yeah.
So you have to wonder what's going on there.
Yeah, such a huge EMT response, right? You would think that would have been addressed. It just points to, as you said, just there's more, as each day goes by, there's more being covered up.
Well, let's let's go back in time to, if I remember right, it was about October 3rd. You and I were having a conversation, and I said, it would not surprise me if the incident at the venue during the concert was used to mask a professional hit.
Yeah.
And now that that nobody has said anything about Hooters, and that supposedly there were bodies being carried out of Hooters as a result of an incident that took place at Hooters. And we have the 59 people's names that are now published, I believe, that died at the concert venue as a result, supposedly, of Paddock. Who died at Hooters?
Well, and elsewhere.
Well, that's true. Who died at Hooters? Was there a shooter outside of the Bellagio? Did anybody die at the Bellagio? And what happened at the Tropicana?
Tropicana, right. Joe saw his shell casings.
Now think about this. The 59 people that died at the concert, were those 59 people all at the concert? Is that what they're saying? And if that's the case, all we have are the 59 innocent individuals that lost their lives as a result of this, affiliated with the concert. If there were bodies, if there were people killed at the Tropicana, if there were people killed at the Bellagio, if there were people killed at Hooters, who are they?
Yeah. And who killed them?
Well, I would like to know who the victims are.
Yeah.
And that hopefully would lead to who killed them. But I'm more, right now, to be honest with you, I am more interested in knowing who the victims were.
Well, I've been saying that from the beginning. I mean, we really need to look at, I didn't know that list had been released. Did that come from the coroner's office, and when did that come out?
forget exactly where I saw that, but I'm sure that I saw that the list had been released.
It'd be interesting for people to dig into that list and see what relationships any of these people have to other businesses or each other.
Right. Was it a hit?
Mm-hmm.
And they needed to mask it. And did they kill 59 innocent people in order to mask something else that was taking place?
When What Big Eyes You Have started digging into all of this shipping logistics information about the Paddock family, and when we think about the fact that the father was a bank robber, that maybe is not an insignificant detail. So he's a bank robber who pleaded no contest, but yet never got any jail time. And we speculated about this during the broadcast tonight. Did he become part of the witness protection program? Is he somehow working with law enforcement? Did that bleed over into his family businesses? I mean, what exactly was that guy doing? I mean, we heard from the beginning that it was possible that Stephen Paddock was involved in arms dealing or something.
Well, first of all, how do you end up on the FBI's 10 most wanted and then get caught and not do jail time?
Yeah, that seems strange.
How do you plead no contest and not get any prison time? A person could look at it and they could come up with all kinds of various scenarios that really aren't going to hold a lot of water.
Yeah.
There was a deal made there of some kind.
Right.
There was some kind of a deal. They let the man go. If that's what happened, they let him go for a reason. What was the reason?
Yeah.
So what did he get involved with? What was he doing for the years that he was on the lam, so to speak? What was he doing? And that might be an interesting piece of information to have, that Paddock, during the time that he was hiding from the FBI, who was he involved with? How did he make a living? Who did he know? I'll bet you there's some interesting information there.
Yeah.
Then we take a look at a pattern that we've seen, and a pattern that I'm very familiar with. That is that front companies that are created, set up by the CIA or other intelligence agencies, oftentimes those companies that are created are involved in some kind of international business and involves import-exportation.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't it interesting that the Paddock family, that it appears that they're involved with international shipping?
Yeah.
Was he involved in some kind of illicit trafficking? Was it drugs? Was it guns? Was it both? Was it children? What was it? What was this man doing? How did he make his money? And he obviously had
a lot
of money.
Yeah.
That money comes from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for an individual to gamble the amount of money that he was gambling and to be treated with comps.
Right.
And I have met a lot of people that have gambled.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who make money in gambling are people that are playing private games.
Yeah.
They're playing against other people. They're not playing against
right.
the house. And I'm going to tell you something right now. The crowd may disagree with this, but I know this for a fact. You do not go to Vegas and win against Vegas.
Of course not.
You win against other gamblers.
Yeah. Poker.
That you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not video poker, regular poker.
Right. Because the house is going to win.
Yeah.
If you play in Vegas against the house eventually you may win some money. I've even won money. But I've lost money. And I don't know of anybody that I've ever met that has played against the house that has won money and made a living at it.
Right. Not over a long time.
No. But I do know people that are professional gamblers that play other gamblers.
Right.
And they've made a ton of money.
Laura Loomer and I interviewed a professional gambler, and that's what he said. He plays poker tournaments, and he plays golf and gambling on golf, and that's how he makes his money. But obviously those are two things that involve skill. If you're an excellent golfer, he told me he's giving other players handicaps or whatever, so he keeps having to get better and better so he can still beat these guys even with the handicap.
Right. I mean, Vegas hires some of the best mathematicians and statisticians that the world has to offer.
Right.
And their sole job is to figure out a way that
nobody else wins.
that the house is going to win. Yeah, it's going to have a payout. Don't get me wrong. It does have a payout.
Right.
People do go and they do, and there are people that win, and sometimes, everybody is going to win, but everybody is going to lose.
If you go there for a couple days and play, a few hours, sure, you might walk away with some money. But if you stay for a while and really put your chips down and hang out, it's not going to work out in the end. I think everybody knows that.
They should know that if they don't.
Yeah.
Even if you have a 50% payout, you're making a ton of money.
Yeah.
So, $10 million moves through Vegas and they keep 5.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of money, and that money was coming from somewhere. Where was that money coming from? His brother in an interview said that he taught us how to make money. What did he teach you?
Yeah, that's an interesting statement that the brother made. That brother was so dramatic in those interviews.
Totally fake. Totally hiding something.
Yeah.
Wanted to appear to be forthcoming, but to be honest about it, the analysis of his so-called interviews showed that he was just absolutely fabricating and lying every step of the way.
That seems accurate.
That we have just all these unanswered questions, about the number of bullets fired and where they went, and the possibility that there were other gunmen, which we still believe that there were other gunmen. There was more than just Paddock.
Yeah.
Where were they located? Where are the shell casings? Where did the bullets go? Is there anything that has bullet holes in it? Why doesn't any of the canvas have bullet holes? Were these people so accurate with their shooting that they didn't hit anything but people and pavement?
Yeah, I mean, that video you sent me showed those VIP little bleachers or whatever they were that Stephanie was telling us about. And, I mean, how come that wasn't riddled with bullets? Talking about thousands of rounds fired into that crowd.
Right. Based on the audio that we've heard, we're questioning the number of rounds that were actually fired.
What do you mean?
How many? Well, how many bullets were really fired in that length of time?
You think less or more?
Less. And so now you have to ask yourself, well, how many bullets really were fired, and what was the accuracy level? And I mean, you got to remember, we've got 59 people dead, and we have 500 that were wounded. Of course, we don't know what those wounds were. They could be all kinds of wounds, right? Somebody fell down and broke their arm. That would be considered a wounding, or not a wounding, but it would be considered an injured
person, right?
Yeah, so how many of the 500 were injured people, and how many of the 500 were actually wounded? We don't know. So there's more unanswered questions.
Yeah, they've not been answering anything, and when anybody gets to actually asking questions, like Laura or Mike Tokes or Jake Morphonius or me, we just get thrown out.
Right. The only excuse that they have and that they have voiced is, fake news and conspiracy theorists. Well, it's really not conspiracy theory when these people don't want to open up and work with you and talk to you, and they don't want to answer questions. When they hold a news conference and they say there's no questions. Yeah. How is that supposed to disarm a potential conspiracy theory?
Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't. It just adds. All it does is add fuel to the fire.
Same way that Battlefield Las Vegas not answering any questions doesn't make them seem, more innocent. You would think someone who had nothing to hide would say, look, we knew the guy. He came in here, but we had no idea he was planning to do this shooting and whatever.
Correct. And let's do a comparison there. When you went to the companies that do the helicopter tourism, what they do?
They're very open, answered every single question. Yeah,
it does. And so, what did that do? Do we still think it's possible that there may have been a helicopter in the area? It has diminished immensely.
Yeah, I don't
right?
think that that's possible. And I definitely think Gunships Las Vegas had nothing to do with it.
No, I agree. And then if there was a military craft that had flown in from the Air Force Base, we'll just say, that maybe there was another craft. But then you would think, of course, I haven't seen any interviews with the actual pilots that were flying that night.
Right. Somebody would have seen it, you would think.
Somebody would have seen something, and you would think that somebody would say something. Then again, maybe the FBI is strong-arming these people. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But the companies that you did talk to that decided to discuss the situation and explain how they operate, and what times they operated, that was extremely helpful.
And extremely professional of them, too. That was just like, totally on the up and up.
Correct. And then you compare that with Battlefield Vegas, there's the difference.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
there's something else strange that happened, Mr. Hudson, that I don't think I've really had the chance to fully discuss with you yet. And, this is a guy who I've decided I don't really want to use his name anymore because it seems that he really sort of languishes in obscurity unless he mentions me or George Webb or you or Joe Napoli or any of the people that are involved in Crowdsource the Truth in any way. But, I've been in very close communication. I'm always in close communication with What Big Eyes You Have, even though she's not always on the broadcasts. She's provided a lot of information and research, and I've just been astounded. I know you and I have spoken many times that we've both been astounded by the effectiveness of, we talk about citizen journalists. We don't really talk about citizen intelligence analysts, but they're out there, and What Big Eyes You Have is a great one. And so, she and I were in communication while I was driving from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, and while I was in Las Vegas, and while I was in Los Angeles. And it's very strange because this person whose name I don't want to use, who has been sort of injecting himself into our situations really since June 2nd, when that stupid spoofed file showed up, that bunk garbage file that he was quite probably involved in getting to us. This guy keeps injecting himself into our business. And, he's not doing it in a way like when I go speak to Chris Gowan, this individual doesn't come and present stronger evidence than what I have to show that I shouldn't be asking Chris Gowan what was being hidden in 4809 Sprayer Street. Or when I go to the coroner's office in Clark County and reveal that it's under lockdown, this individual that I'm talking about doesn't come with some sort of logical legal explanation as to why or how or under what circumstances that can happen. And likewise, when I reveal that a certain 501c3 organization called the Earth Intelligence Network is being fraudulently utilized, this individual doesn't come and disprove what I say with facts, but rather this individual has repeatedly put forth blatant lies that he must know are untrue. He's using hate speech. He's accusing me of being a Mossad agent for no reason other than the fact that I am of Jewish heritage, which I think is, racism or discrimination or something. He's certainly inciting those who dislike Jewish people to make a lot of disparaging comments. And certainly whenever anyone uses hate speech against any race, religion, sexual orientation, if it's brought to my attention, I delete that person from our chats. I don't retweet what they say. So this person is fomenting hate. And last week, he crossed a line. He came to my home on a video live stream. And unlike when I go to the home of Jesus Campos, who's an individual who's been in national newspapers and who has become an element in one of the most serious crimes in the history of the nation, and therefore an interview with him is newsworthy and has value on a level of national interest, this individual who I'm talking about coming to my home with a live stream, that is an extremely aggressive, threatening move that I think probably crosses over into the realm of criminal harassment, maybe stalking. I certainly think that this person has acted in extremely unwise ways throughout the time that I've become aware of him, and he continues to do that. So I find the metadata surrounding this person's activities very interesting because he's recently come out with what seems to be his most factual and informative report in the time that I've been aware of him. And it's got to do with G4S and Wackenhut, the guy that owns that company. And that is the exact topic that What Big Eyes You Have was texting me about the night before this individual came out with his report. And the only reason I even make the correlation, well, I found the time correlation of when he came out with it versus when these private text messages were being sent to me. Mm-hmm. He mentions me in the video. He says, why is Jason Goodman not talking about this? And someone told me that he even implied that either I or Joe Napoli was working for G4S. So again, this is a guy who repeatedly has made statement after statement after statement with no factual basis whatsoever. This is a guy who previously broadcast to his viewers on YouTube a private text message that I had sent to Dilyana, the Bulgarian journalist who was looking into the flights on Silkways Airlines. This is an individual who's repeatedly injecting himself into our investigation when I don't ask him for help, I don't ask him to become involved. And he seems to be working with an individual who has brought a frivolous lawsuit against me. And he seems to always show up when we're getting close to the truth to put out some nonsense.
Well,
it's interesting, isn't it?
It is. It makes you wonder if he hasn't kind of partnered up with somebody to do some dirty work, just to create a hassle. See, that's the bad thing about independent journalism. There's a lot of people out there. Let's face it. There's hundreds, it's maybe thousands of people that view themselves or want to get their 2 cents in, but they're not journalists. They have no integrity. What bothers me is that you get these people out there that are not doing their due diligence, and they're not telling the truth. If they were coming up against a large network, the network would simply have one of their attorneys draw up a letter saying, look, knock it off or we're going to file a lawsuit. But when they come after individuals like yourself that are, not funded, it makes it so much more difficult for you to fight back. And then what these people do is they say, well, the First Amendment. Well, the freedom of speech is a good thing. However, blatant lies that are being told about an individual is a crime.
It's slander.
It's at least a civil crime, if nothing else.
Civil tort, right. Yeah. There's another interesting factor in this story, Mr. Hudson, because, you see, when we had Cheryl Atkinson on, she was talking about how groups like Media Matters for America, these political operative groups along the lines of what Dr. Corsi said Seth Rich was working for. These are sort of shadowy agencies that, most people aren't even aware that these things existed, but they're carrying out, they're almost like, civilian intelligence organizations that are going and carrying out operations that might not be military operations, but they're still damaging. They involve computer hacking, they involve, media campaigns, they involve staged incidents, all kinds of things. And I found it very interesting that, this individual was working at a company called Firesight. And when we did a report about the fact that the owner of Firesight is the son of a guy who works at a Department of Defense contractor, and that this individual is obviously close personal friends with the owner of Firesight, and that the relationship there at Firesight really closely matches the description that Cheryl Atkinson provided as far as how people engaging in these type of civilian political operations might be paid. She said it's not a straightforward payment to the individual. Maybe he was working at that company being paid to mess with Crowdsource the Truth. He got very agitated when we started talking about that. He was calling me during the broadcast. He was texting me during the broadcast. He hasn't done that since June, and he was allegedly fired from that job.
Well, one of the things too that a person like that should really think about is it's not the people that you know are looking at you. It's the people you don't know that are looking at you behind, and keeping quiet about it. So I'm not going to say anything more other than he should knock it off. He really should rethink his position. Otherwise, he's liable to get a surprise.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly not aware of what you're talking about, and neither of us are in the business of making any threats, but I agree with you. I think this guy is putting himself...
That wasn't a threat. That wasn't a threat. I was simply saying that, don't give somebody a reason to be poking around on you. Certain individuals have already given people a reason to look at them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of time and patience to dig up enough crap on them before before it comes out. What can I say? The bad thing about it is that in the world that we live in today, it's always a threat, a threat, a threat. This person says this person says that. Well, I'm going to do, then somebody says, I'm going to do this. Somebody else says, I'm going to do that. And the next thing you know, somebody gets a supposed alley attorney to sue somebody, frivolously at that.
Yeah.
Okay, if they want to fight the game that way, but there's another way to fight back, and that is you dig and you dig and you dig and you never say a word about it, and you dig and you dig and you stay quiet, you dig and you dig, and then when you come out with it, it's just a slam dunk.
Yeah.
I think those people need to back off, is what I think. They need to back off. They need to go home, and they need to shut up.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, and the final thing I'll leave you with, Mr. Hudson, is that I think, you and I are both close followers of any new information related to the JFK assassination. I feel very firmly that that was a real turning point for what we consider now to be the deep state in terms of them really taking hold and taking over and exerting their power over the properly elected government. And it's very interesting to see what's going on with this upcoming release of the JFK information. So I definitely want to try to get to DC for that. I am reluctant to broadcast my plans in the future because we know that some individuals who we've been speaking about during this call like to call places in advance of my arrival there and tell them things that are untrue about me to try to thwart my progress. Again, another indicator that, that person is lying, and he's trying to prevent us from, why would anyone who actually wants to get to the truth want to prevent me or Patricia Negron from speaking to Eric Braverman? That was a purely malicious maneuver, and anyone who can't see that is malicious themselves or completely stupid.
Well, all I can say is that people better have their I's dotted and their T's crossed, because otherwise there could be they could wake up one morning and find out they've got several felonies facing them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a foundation, and you better be running it properly, and it better be, and those violations have already been made. I mean, those violations have already been. There's problems. I don't want to get into it.
Right.
But in regards to JFK, I would not hold my breath.
Yeah.
Because the information we're getting out of Washington, from the Washington boys, is that they're fighting this thing tooth and nail to not let all the information out. They want to slap another 20 or 30 years on this thing.
Crazy.
Well, it is. But is it? I mean, think about this. For years, there has been discussion about George Bush Sr.
Yep.
being in Dallas that day with a photograph.
Yep, I've seen it.
Well, he's not dead. So it could be they don't want to let this information out because it could be very damaging to him if, in fact, he was in Dallas and this information shows it.
Well, I know you're aware of the letter from J. Edgar Hoover talking about Mr. George Bush of the CIA. That's already been released.
Correct.
They simply
So
say, "Oh, that's a
I had
different George Bush."
I had an individual ask me. They said, "What if they don't release the information or all of it? What would be the reason?" And I flat out said just the other night at a dinner that I attended, and I said, very simple: Bush Senior's not dead yet.
Yeah.
Bottom line, that's what they're protecting. In my opinion, that's what they're protecting.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I want to bring up with you, I really appreciate the fact that you went to California. And I appreciate that you and Joe took some time to take a look at the fires there. But you know something, Jason? There is something really strange going on with those fires.
Yeah.
Now, I have never worked as a investigator with like in a capacity as a fire marshal or something. But because of a engineering background, I have had an opportunity to work with fire marshals in looking at structures that had burned from a reconstruction standpoint, determining how much of the structure was going to have to come down and be rebuilt, or if not all the structure would have to be completely torn down and rebuilt and that type of thing. The photographs that I have seen coming out of California does not look like a normal fire. When a house burns or a structure, there's always something left behind. If there's brick, the brick typically stays intact. It may fall over some of it, but typically the burnables will burn and leave the bricks behind.
Right.
Still standing in place.
Of course.
Now, granted, today, the construction materials that we have today is very different than the construction materials we had even just 20 years ago. For example, most homes today do not have copper plumbing anymore. They use a product called PEX, which is a plastic tubing. A lot of the stonework that is done on homes today is not stone. It is a faux stone, and there's several manufacturers of faux stone and faux brick that, quite frankly, if it's done right, you really can't tell the difference between the real thing. So those are combustible in most cases. But things like, for example, if you go to a house that's burned, one of the things you're going to see is, for example, if it burns up a bedroom, it may burn all the furniture, but it doesn't burn the box springs.
Right.
It'll burn everything but the box springs. The box springs will be laying there, right? Your refrigerator, your freezer, the various kitchen appliances, your stainless steel stove, your dishwashers.
Yeah.
Those don't burn up either.
Right.
They're typically laying there in amidst all of the stuff that was burned, and even some of the wooden structure will still be standing. It'll be charred, but it'll still be standing. Granite countertops, your marble countertops, your bathroom fixtures, your ceramic commodes.
Right.
Those things are all left behind.
Sure.
Well, when I take a look at these pictures in California, I don't see much of that. Once in a while, I will see an appliance. I'll see a washing machine or something like that. But for the most part, the only thing that's left is zero structure. I mean, it's like these places were destroyed to literal ash.
Yeah.
But something that is interesting is that a lot of these cars had no glass in them. Now that glass can only do a few things. It could break into small pieces, but in some cases it appeared the glass had melted.
Right.
Which was interesting, because you're looking at extreme heat at that point. Well over. I mean, you're looking at, I don't know what glass melts at, but it'd have to be in the 2,000 degree range or better. And then you've got this tree 20 feet away from the car, and the tree doesn't have a mark on it.
Yeah, 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit is the melting temperature of glass.
There you go. So what the heck happened with these trees and these bushes that were sitting very close to where these structures are burning, and the trees are still intact? Not in all cases. There were some trees that were burned, but there are some pictures that I've seen, some video where the grass, the lawns were still there.
You know, Mr. Hudson, the
grass was still green.
The park ranger that Joe and I spoke to said that in the past there were certain fires that they had that turned the sand into glass. And right here, the internet says that 3,090 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature at which sand turns to glass. So
there you go.
That's hot. How is a fire in the forest getting up to 3,090 degrees?
Well, let's say that it does. Let's say that the condition. Let's just for discussion's sake. Let's just say that the fires were burning. They were so intense that they actually did reach those kind of temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how close could you get to something like that with that kind of temperature?
Not very close without burning up.
Exactly. So it really, I mean, when you take a look at the streets and you take a look at the blacktop, you take a look at the trees. I even saw in some cases where they were driving, this person was driving down this street. There were plastic trash bins still sitting out in front of the house, or where the house was.
Right.
There's no way that house could burn.
And the plastic not melt.
And the plastic not melt.
Yeah, because, I mean, even if it was 3,090 degrees, I would think several feet away, you'd still, I mean, what's the temperature fall off? It seems like it would heat up everything around there.
Exactly. It's strange. Now, I did see further down when they drove that there was a trash bin that had not melted, but you could tell it had become soft and had kind of collapsed in on itself.
Mm-hmm.
But there were many sitting close by to where these houses were that burned that looked brand new. Didn't have a mark on them. Didn't have any indication of any kind of softening, melting, or otherwise. So I don't know what took place in California with these fires, but something is very, very strange.
Yeah.
And when you and I had talked about it, I told you that we had received information from an individual that has multiple PhD level degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Not very many of those people in existence. You know, it's amazing when you meet somebody that has achieved a PhD level degree of any kind. But when you meet an individual that has several,
mm-hmm.
that is something, you know, that's amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he happens to be a physicist. And even he said that what he was seeing in the aftermath of these fires, and he was something that didn't make sense. That that what he saw was defying thermodynamics.
So how could it be?
Don't know, Jason. I really, really don't have an explanation for it. But it's something that people should definitely be taking a look at. Now, he mentioned, and I almost hate to say it because it's just so far-fetched, but coming from him, you know, it's something to pay attention to. Regardless of, you know, sometimes fact is stranger than fiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
But according to him, that the only thing that he could think of that could do something like that would be a high-energy microwave or plasma beam. Now, bear in mind, this individual, who I don't want to divulge, has done extensive experimenting in plasma research
Mm-hmm.
and high energy microwave weaponry.
Uh-huh.
And he's saying that it's his belief, it's his feeling that a lot of what he saw these fires appeared to be based on some kind of microwave plasma energy. So there you have it. I don't know if we're on crowdsource the truth or the Twilight Zone at this point, but I have a lot of respect for this individual.
Right.
I know him personally, obviously, and have known him for many years. And for him to say something like that, he's a very quiet-spoken individual, doesn't say much, is a true scientist. He is not the type of individual to jump to any kind of a strange conclusion. I mean, this is a man who truly deals with scientific fact, and that's it. You start talking about anything outside of that, and he's just not interested.
Mm-hmm.
For him to come out and say something like this raised my eyebrows.
Right.
Truly did. Truly raised my eyebrows.
It just seems like there's so much going on now that's basically inexplicable.
My God, I mean, we haven't even touched on Hillary Clinton,
Yeah.
the spy ring in Congress with the Awan brothers, the Clinton Foundation being involved with Russian spies.
Yep. Well, how about Mueller investigating the Podestas? That's like,
Yeah.
They might as well have Debbie Wasserman Schultz investigate the spy ring.
Yeah, I mean that would be like Al Capone investigating himself, right? Or the Chicago Police Department investigating Al Capone.
Yeah.
You stop to consider he had them all in his back pocket. That it's not going to go very far. And it was extremely disturbing that Jeff Sessions was specifically asked if Rosenstein should be even involved in the investigation, and Sessions came back and said, "Well, he's a good and honorable man, and it's his decision." Oh, yeah. I was so disappointed. Yeah. I was like, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, it was a bad answer.
So once again, and in closing, Mr. President, if you somehow, some way listen to this, you need to fire Jeff Sessions.
Yeah.
You need to fire Mr. Rosenstein. You need to fire Mr. Mueller. You need to put Comey in handcuffs.
Yeah.
For God's sakes, do something before they destroy this nation.
Yeah. Perhaps tomorrow we could talk about those topics in greater length.
Yeah. Oh, my Lord. There's so many books that could be written from all this.
Yeah.
Well, you take care. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you and speak to you. It's always good to put something like this out to the crowdsource audience.
Yeah.
I really care about all of them, and I know you do. Really appreciate all of the work that's being done by many, many, many people, including Queen Tut. I still appreciate the fine work that she has done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully this will blow over and we can all move forward. So
yeah,
take care and God bless you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Sounds great, Mr. Hudson. Take care. Have a good night.
All right, buddy. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.